Everyone keeps begging for the Epstein list like it's one secret page that's about to drop and explain everything. But here's the real tea. The Epstein Files are not one neat folder, and they're definitely not a magic list of guilty people. They're a massive, messy paper trail, different kinds of records from different places, mixed with redactions, duplicates, and documents that can be misunderstood on purpose or by accident. And that's exactly why the internet keeps getting played by screenshots. And just so you know, this is episode 4, the final episode of the Epstein Files series. If you haven't watched episodes 1 through 3 yet, go start there first, because this episode makes way more sense once you've seen how the story began, how the system worked, and how it all collapsed. Quick content note, this case involves sexual abuse and trafficking allegations involving minors. I'll keep it non-graphic and focus on the timeline and what's confirmed. So let's start with what's actually confirmed in 2026. On January 30th, 2026, the U.S. Department of Justice announced it published over 3 million additional pages in response to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, plus more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. The DOJ said that with earlier releases, the total production was nearly 3.5 million pages. That's the big drop everyone's talking about, because it wasn't one document, it was a flood. But here's the part people miss. A big release doesn't automatically mean new answers. These files can include investigative material, logs, emails, photos, court records, some useful, some repetitive, and some heavily redacted. Even mainstream coverage noted the DOJ identified over 6 million potentially responsive pages, but had released only about half by that point, which is why critics and lawmakers kept pushing. And now we get to the most important rule of this entire episode. A name appearing in a file is not proof of a crime. A name can show up because someone was in a contact list, mentioned by a witness, included in a flight log, part of a business circle, or referenced in a civil case. That's not the same as being charged, and it's definitely not the same as being convicted. This is why name drops on social media are so dangerous, because people treat a mention like a verdict. That misunderstanding exploded before, and it's happening again now. In 2024, a lot of people talked about a list, but many of those viral moments were tied to court documents from civil litigation, where claims and mentions can be disputed and don't automatically equal proof. The 2026 DOJ release reopened that same chaos, just bigger. Now let's address the biggest internet claim head-on, because this is what fuels the most conspiracy content. The idea that there's a hidden client list that proves everything. According to reporting based on FBI conclusions summarized in internal memos, the FBI concluded Epstein was not running a trafficking ring for powerful men the way viral posts claim, and that a client list does not exist. That doesn't mean Epstein wasn't a serial abuser. He was charged with sex trafficking, and prosecutors described a pattern of exploitation. It means investigators said they did not find evidence supporting the specific powerful men client list narrative the internet repeats like a slogan. So why are people still furious if millions of pages are being released? Because the fight isn't only about what exists, it's about what's being redacted, and why. In early February, lawmakers were allowed to review unredacted versions in a secure setting, and Time reported that Reps. Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna alleged they saw evidence that at least 6 men had been concealed without clear legal justification, arguing the act does not allow redactions just to avoid embarrassment or reputational harm. The DOJ, on the other hand, has pushed back on claims that it's withholding major material, and reporting described DOJ officials saying they produced 3.5 million pages in compliance and disclosed what items were not responsive. That's the tug of war in 2026. One side saying release everything with minimal redactions, the other side saying we have legal duties, we must protect victims, and the volume is massive. And buried inside that argument is another serious issue: survivor privacy. Coverage of the releases described DOJ saying redactions were necessary to protect survivors' identities, while also noting criticism about how redactions were handled and how much was withheld. Now here's what makes this story tricky for the public. File drops create a perfect storm for misinformation. A screenshot can go viral even if the document is taken out of context. A rumor can sound official just because someone says it came from the files. And because Epstein was connected to wealthy and famous circles, people rushed to treat every mention like a smoking gun. That's why you'll see internet lists pop up overnight, most of them mixing real mentions with guesswork, and sometimes straight-up fake claims. So if you're watching this series and you want to stay grounded, think of the Epstein Files like this. It's a warehouse of paperwork. Some boxes matter a lot. Some boxes repeat what we already knew. Some pages are redacted for real legal reasons. Some pages can be misread. And not everything in a warehouse is a verdict. Sometimes it's leads, sometimes it's noise, sometimes it's evidence, and sometimes it's just a name on a page. And the reason this files chapter won't end the conversation is simple. People don't just want documents. They want closure. But this case is full of gaps, early plea deal controversies, Epstein's death in custody, and years of public distrust. Documents can answer some questions, but they also create new ones, especially when different sides disagree about what should be public. So here's the real point of episode 4, the finale. Stop chasing a fantasy one list. The real power is learning the difference between what's confirmed, what's alleged, and what's just mentioned. Because that's how you avoid turning serious crimes into a celebrity scavenger hunt. Now tell me in the comments, do you think releasing huge document dumps helps people understand the truth? Or does it just create a bigger misinformation storm? And if you haven't watched episodes 1, 2, and 3 yet, go check them out right after this. This series is built like a timeline for a reason. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is Tea with Timeline.